So we've got three new coaches in the Big Ten, right?
Okay.
Sharon Moore, Jonathan Smith at Michigan State,
Yep.
and Kurt Signetti
Okay.
at Indiana. So we know Sharon Moore's resume is he's 4-0 already
Yes. Yes, he is.
with wins against Ohio State and Penn State.
Yep.
So that's Sharon Moore. We got that. Jonathan Smith, so he left Oregon State for Michigan State. His record at Oregon State was 34-35 overall, 1-1 in bowl games.
Okay.
So Michigan State, I think, is picking up an average coach. And where would you put Oregon State and Michigan State as far as talent levels and historically
Oh man.
production?
I don't know. That's a good question. Because it's not like Oregon State is bad. I mean, they've been consistently ranked over the last few seasons, I think. They played a tough game against Washington. I think they almost beat Washington, actually, this season. I actually think that they're probably on the same level, but Michigan State, it would be when they had Mark D'Antonio.
Okay.
Yeah, so they would be probably
So you think
pretty
Jonathan
similar.
Smith is equivalent to D'Antonio?
I think he could be.
Could be.
Yeah.
All right.
I think he'll probably. I mean, there's a reason he went from Oregon State over to Michigan State, and I believe it has more to do with the conference than it does the school. I think if Oregon State were in a more stable conference, maybe he stays. Maybe he goes to Washington. I don't know,
Yeah.
because he had mentioned that wanting to do that.
That's right. He wanted to
Yeah.
wait for that job. He
Yeah.
thought he should have waited for that job to open up.
But I don't think he's a bad coach by any means. I think with the resources that Oregon State has, which I believe are not fantastic, he did pretty well.
Well, that's interesting because I think there's a lot of factors there because if you would think that any position a coach takes would theoretically be a step up or at least lateral,
Yeah.
unless they've fallen on hard times like say a Rich Rod or a Hoke who had to take a step back.
Yeah.
But there's no reason that Jonathan Smith couldn't take a lateral or upward move. So he's got to be seeing Michigan State as an upward move, but apparently not as upward as Washington would have been. So, but given that, I mean, he's looking at he's an average coach, 34-35 with 1-1 in bowl games, and that to me, combined with the fact that he said he wished he would have waited for the Washington job, I think does not bode well for Michigan State. I think he's only going to be there for a short time, and then he's going to check out.
Yeah. I mean, you also look at the situation that Michigan State is in right now. Their roster is completely depleted, although Jonathan Smith has done a good job of bringing in some players, getting some good recruits. But it's not enough. They absolutely need more.
Yeah.
You've got USC. UCLA is kind of on an upward trend. Well, maybe I shouldn't say that. Washington's certainly on a downward trend, and then Oregon actually is side by side with Ohio State as early favorites for the Big Ten.
Okay.
So Michigan State, I mean, they had Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan to worry about. Now they've got Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, Oregon, USC, to an extent, UCLA and Washington.
Yeah.
I think could both beat them still. I mean, Washington is obviously depleted right now, but who knows? They're not in a good position.
Right.
So that alone, honestly, could make it challenging for Jonathan Smith. And he honestly, we're seeing a lot of coaches right now ditching for the NFL way earlier than they probably should because they're getting fed up with the way that college athletics is being run right now with NIL, transfer portal rules, and the fact that the NCAA apparently just feels like going after anybody and everyone for anything.
Right.
So under normal circumstances, I would say that's actually a good hire.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're living in normal circumstances with CFB right now.
Right. Yeah. We'll just have to. We'll see. We'll see soon enough. So Indiana has hired Kurt Signetti. This one I feel is the much more interesting hire.
Okay.
Kurt Signetti brought James Madison into the FBS.
Yes, he did.
So he brought them up. He was 52-9 overall, and that's it's 2 years in the FBS. I think if 3 or 4 years in the FCS. He was 11-1 last year, so in his second year in the FBS. His total FBS record now is 19-4.
I mean, yeah, James
And
Madison.
Indiana picked him up. I have a feeling that Indiana now is going to get their next season kickstarted, because Kirk Cignetti here is on a roll, and now he's got. I mean, you're talking about resources going from James Madison to Indiana. He's at least doubled his resources,
I think.
and he could very well put Indiana in contention,
Well, but I don't know. I mean,
or at the very least make Indiana dangerous.
well, he might make Indiana
I guess you'd
dangerous.
probably look at it that way this year. He probably could make Indiana dangerous this
Yeah.
year.
Maybe he builds something. I don't know. I guess the way I see it is if he's coaching James Madison administration are probably, like they don't care about football. Maybe. I don't know. But let's just say they're at James Madison University. They're not necessarily known for football.
Right.
So this coach comes in, Cignetti, and says, we really don't need that much to be better than everyone else in our conference. Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, all right. Let's give you some resources, see what we can do. And then he does it.
Yeah.
If he goes to Indiana, can he have the same conversation with the administration and say, like, we're in the Big Ten. You've got NIL as an issue. You've got the transfer portal as an issue. Michigan's taken all of our best tight ends and backup quarterbacks. So, yeah, can they spend to keep up with Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, USC, Washington, Oregon? I mean,
Yeah, I don't know.
can they? And I don't think that they can. So I think Cignetti's going to have a lot of really good players that are going to, he's going to have a lot of players that have a lot of heart, and he's going to have some decent talent on that team, but they're not going to have the resources to
Right.
pull in the players and build the culture that they need to beat the Michigans and Ohio States and Oregons and USCs of the world. Sam Hartman's looking downfield for Adrian.
Carter almost has a one-handed catch.
Almost. That was